OpenAI has just released API access for o1 beta, and it's actually available right now for you to integrate into your application. Let's check it out. So if we head over to Read Docs, we'll see here that they've actually provided documentation for the latest API. Now this is going to be super exciting, so we're going to run an easy example here, but let's just go through some of this documentation so that you can get started right away. Here, it describes the reasoning models. OpenAI o1 series models are new large language models trained with reinforcement learning to perform complex reasoning. o1 models think before they answer and can produce a long internal chain of thought before responding to the user. o1 models excel at scientific reasoning, ranking in the 89th percentile on competitive programming questions, code forces, placing among the top 500 students in the US in a qualifier for a US Math Olympiad, also called AIME, and exceeding human PhD level accuracy on a benchmark of physics, biology, and chemistry problems. Now, there are two reasoning models available in the API, which is super awesome. They have o1-Preview, which is actually more powerful than o1-Mini. However, o1-Mini is much faster. Both of them have a bit of that reasoning context. However, o1-Preview packs a huge punch. Now here are the official descriptions. o1-Preview, an early preview of our o1 model designed to reason about hard problems using broad general knowledge about the world. o1-Mini, a faster and cheaper version of o1, particularly adept at coding, math, and science tasks where extensive general knowledge isn't required. o1 models offer significant advancement, o1 models offer significant advancements in reasoning, but they are not intended to replace GPT-4o in all use cases. Remember guys, new isn't always better, so you want to make sure that you're optimizing which model that you use for your particular use case. In this case, it says, for applications that need image inputs, function calling, or consistently fast responses, the GPT-4o and GPT-4o mini models will continue to be the right choice. So they recommend using ChatGPT 4o as well as ChatGPT 4o mini, but not particularly o1-Preview and o1-Mini. And the reason is because this reasoning that these models are going through, well, it takes a lot more time, and that's going to cause huge latency in your application. Number two, I think that they haven't made all the tweaks necessary for the function calling just yet. So I think once they've perfected that, then we'll probably be able to utilize o1 and o1-Preview, or maybe when o1 actually releases and we're not just getting sort of these clunkier iterations. At that point, we'll be able to use function calling and image inputs. Hopefully, they've already created a much better integration of OpenAI Vision, but all that is to be seen. And currently, they are struggling with Orion. If you haven't heard about that, check out my previous video. However, let's continue because I'm super excited about using this as an API regardless, especially for coding. So here we see that for applications that need inputs, as they've mentioned, function calling, things like that, we'll utilize 4o and 4o mini. Now, let's actually jump into the code. Here, quick start. Both o1-Preview and o1-Mini are available through the chat completions endpoint. Beautiful. So if you've already been working with the other models, then you are aware at this point how to utilize chat completions. And if it's a bit of a brain teaser, then go ahead and check out Vercel's AI SDK, which I've also created a video about. And that actually creates a library that you can use that'll make a lot of this much easier. However, I have not confirmed whether they've made it available to o1-Preview and o1-Mini just yet. So I'll check that out and confirm. And if you know, just leave a comment below the video. Here, seems pretty simple. We're just going to use the completions API as we've been doing so. Instead of 4o here, we're just going to literally put o1-Preview. Here we're going to give it the messages as we've always done. You can also provide a prompt. And at this point, we're just going to log that first element in the array that's returned back to us. Now it says here, depending on the amount of reasoning required by the model to solve the problem, these requests can take anywhere from a few seconds to several minutes. So if you're building these applications and you're creating a full stack application, make sure you have really good user experience by creating loaders, maybe like a progress bar, something of the sort, so that your user isn't sitting there racking their brain trying to figure out what is going on. Why haven't I received a response yet? Have they stolen my money? So at this point, play around with it and see what is the best way to optimize it. Don't do too much because they're probably going to release o1 and you're going to have to change a lot of your code. And you're like, what is going on here? I literally don't even recognize this anymore. That has happened to me. So I want to save you that headache. Here, we're going to talk about some of the limitations. Beta limitations. During the beta phase, many chat completion API parameters are not yet available. Most notably, modalities. So text only, images are not supported. Cool. Message types. User and assistant messages only. System messages are not supported. So if you're used to putting in that system message, you have to do away with that. It's just going to be assistant and user, not system. Tools. Tools, function calling, and response format parameters are not supported. So here we're saying they're not supported at all. It's not like it's going to give you like different responses and probably not accurate. No, it's not working at all. So don't try it as of right now. You're going to be wasting your time. If you want to still utilize function calling, which I love, you want to go ahead and utilize the 4.0 ChatGPT version, not the 401 or 401 mini, or rather 401-Preview or 401-Mini. Here, log probs, not supported. Other things that they've mentioned is temperature and top_P are fixed at 1. So they've already set up a default for us, while presence_penalty and frequency_penalty are fixed at 0. So that means we can't even change those things. Assistant and batch. These models are not supported in the assistant API or the batch API. Sorry guys, I know you guys want to know that first, but yeah, it is not going to be supported in this particular API. We will be adding support for some of these parameters in the coming weeks, which I actually just touched on earlier, as we move out of beta. Features like multimodality and tool usage will be included in future models of the o1 series. Amazing. So that's great news, guys. If you're worried about being able to use function calling, they're going to be rolling that out after a few weeks. So just play around with it right now, get familiar so that you're at the cutting edge of this AI renaissance. Now, how reasoning works. This is the most exciting section. So the o1 models introduce reasoning tokens. The models use these reasoning tokens to think, breaking down their understanding of the prompt and considering multiple approaches to generating a response. After generating reasoning tokens, the model produces an answer as visible completion tokens and discards the reasoning tokens from its context. And that's so that you're not able to actually see that thought process. I guess they don't want other companies stealing their strategy, or I'm not sure what it is. Also, sometimes like it'll do all this reasoning and then the response will just vanish. So I'm sure that you'll probably experience a bit of that in the API. Just be aware. And if you have experienced something like that, leave a comment in the underneath the video. I'm curious to see what your actual nuanced experience was. Now here, we see an example of a multi-step conversation between a user and an assistant. Input and output tokens from each step are carried over while reasoning tokens are discarded. So here we see that in turn one, so in the beginning, we have an input, then it's going to run through its reasoning, and then it will provide an output. Now, turn two, so it's the second phase, it's going to take in that input as well as the output from turn one. Okay, so it's going to take both of these in, and in turn two, it's going to literally do the same process. Recursively, it's going to process the reasoning, generate an output, and then take that huge input, which came from the first model, which came from the first turn and the second turn, and use that to pass on to the third turn and also combine the output. So doing this recursively, we're now in turn three. We have even a huger input because it's taking turn one and turn two's input as well as their outputs. And that's simply going to be the input for turn three, which is amazing. Then it runs through the reasoning, output, and then here is where it's going to create context window and slice the truncated output and only provide us the output. So I hope that made sense, but that's more or less what's going on with these reasoning models in a nutshell. Now, while reasoning tokens are not available via the API, they still occupy space in the model's context windows and are billed as output tokens. Now, I think that that's a bit nefarious, but that's just my own bias there. I think that they should just give us those tokens. But again, I think that the AI ecosystem is heating up and the competition is only beginning. So I think that they're trying to keep their cards close, and I can respect that as a business entrepreneur. Even though I work full-time role as well, I think that sometimes when we're in this competitive landscape, especially dealing with AI, sometimes you pretty much want to make sure that you have everything that you need to make sure that you can sustain, because a lot of these companies that we see today may not be around in 2 years because it's so easy to iterate and make better what they've created. So hopefully they've created a brand and they sort of have that jump start so that they have an advantage. But if the product isn't living up, someone else will make a better product. So I think that's just a verbal diatribe. Sorry about that, about why they're choosing to do so. And again, I'm not for it against it. I think it's a bit nefarious, but there are two sides to every coin. So here, managing the context window. The o1-Preview and o1 models offer a context window of 128,000 tokens. Each completion has an upper limit on the maximum number of tokens. This includes both the invisible reasoning tokens and the visible completion tokens. The maximum output tokens are o1-Preview up to 32,768 tokens. And o1-mini, we're talking about up to 65,536 tokens. It is important to ensure there's enough space in the context window for reasoning tokens when completing completions. Depending on the problem's complexity, the models may generate anywhere from a few hundred to tens of thousands of reasoning tokens. The exact number of reasoning tokens used is visible in the usage object of the chat completion response under completion underscore tokens underscore details. So here, see an example of that code. Now, I know some of you guys who have been really pulling out a lot of money from your wallet to pay for some of these API expenses want to know about this section. So we're talking about controlling costs. To manage cost with the o1 series models, you can limit the total number of tokens the model generates, including both reasoning and completion tokens, by using the max underscore completion underscore tokens parameter. In previous models, the max underscore tokens parameter controlled both the number of tokens generated and the number of tokens visible to the user, which were always equal. However, with the o1 series, the total tokens generated can exceed the number of visible tokens due to the internal reasoning tokens. And again, you may not be able to see that, but just know that you will be billed for it. And it's also included in the context window. Because some applications might rely on max underscore tokens matching the number of tokens received from the API, the o1 series introduces max underscore completions underscore tokens to explicitly control the total number of tokens generated by the model. Now that is brilliant. So if you do have APIs that you're providing tokens to users and you're using certain parameters from OpenAI to sort of keep track of that, well, they haven't left us hanging, right? They've provided us the max underscore completion underscore tokens, which will allow us to explicitly control the total number of tokens generated by the model. That way, we're not giving our customers a lot more tokens than we've actually purchased from OpenAI, because in that case, we're going to be footing the bill. And you may also want to adjust your pricing accordingly if they're utilizing the o1-Mini and o1-Preview. So here, it specifies that the max underscore tokens parameter continues to function as before for all previous models. So that's good. They're not changing things completely. Here, allocating space for reasoning. If the generated tokens reach the context window limit or the max underscore completion underscore tokens value you've set, you'll receive a chat completion response with the finish underscore reason set to length. This might occur before any visible completion tokens are produced, meaning you could incur cost for input and reasoning tokens without receiving a visible response. And that's scary because you're not even receiving a response, but you're still getting billed. So when you're looking at your billing, you may be confused as to where are most of these resources being allocated. So again, I think that they're just trying to say that this isn't really production ready. I just want you guys to play around with it and see what it's capable of. But we're going to be fixing these bugs here, especially when you guys all let us know which bugs to fix, because I feel like the developer community also really helps by providing all these bugs and all these patches and merges, and that's what makes the product better, right? So here they're just giving us sort of the a heads up as to what's going to be happening, and I respect that. I really want you guys to be upfront because some of this technology, we're spending a lot of money on it, and the more information, the better. So here, it's mentioned that you'll receive a chat completion response with the finish underscore reason set to length. This might occur before any visible completion tokens are produced, meaning you can incur cost for input and reasoning tokens without receiving a visible response. We just talked about that. So now it mentions to prevent this, ensure there's sufficient space in the context window, or adjusting the max underscore completions tokens value to a higher number. OpenAI recommends reserving at least 25,000 tokens for reasoning and outputs when you start experimenting with these models. As you become familiar with the number of reasoning tokens your prompts require, you can adjust this buffer accordingly. Now, here's some advice on prompting. These models perform best with straightforward prompts. Some prompt engineering techniques like few shot prompting or instructing the model to think step by step may not enhance performance and can sometimes actually hinder it. Here are the best practices. Keep prompts simple and direct. The models excel at understanding and responding to brief, clear instructions without the need for extensive guidance. Avoid chain of thought prompts. Since these models perform reasoning internally, prompting them to think step by step or explain your reasoning is unnecessary. Use delimitators for clarity. Use delimiters like triple quotation mark, XML tags, or section titles to clearly indicate distinct parts of the input, helping the model interpret different sections appropriately. Lastly, limit additional context in retrieval augmented generation, RAG, when providing additional context or documents, including only the most relevant information to prevent the model from overcomplicating its response. Prompt examples. So here we've got the code refactoring. It mentions that OpenAI o1 series are able to implement complex algorithms and produce code. This prompt asks o1 to refactor a React component based on some specific criteria. So here are the instructions. Given the React component below, change it so that the non-fiction books have red text. Return only the code in your reply. Do not, which is interesting because usually they've told us to be more deliberate about telling it what to do, but not what not to do, because it doesn't really notice that well. But here in this example, it says do not include any additional formatting, such as markdown code blocks for formatting. For formatting, use 4 space tabs. Do not allow any lines of code to exceed 80 columns. Now here it gives it an array of books. It's got a few titles there, categories, and ID. Great. Now we also have the book list. So this is the actual component, and it's going to loop over these books. Great. Here it mentions that we're just going to pass that in to the actual o1-Mini series. Looks really simple. And then we're just going to log out the completion token details. Now, here, there are a few use case examples, which we will be going over. We want to make sure that, again, before we just throw this into production, we're testing it out and making sure that things are generating as expected. Here, talks about using reasoning for data validation. So I think that's pretty cool. And the other one that they mentioned, I guess this is a new tab, so let's go to the other one. So the other one that they mentioned is using reasoning for routine generation. So here it mentions when developing customer service solutions, one of the initial steps involves transforming knowledge-based articles into a set of routines that an LLM can comprehend and follow. A routine in this context refers to a set of step-by-step instructions designed specifically for the LLM to execute efficiently. Each routine is carefully structured so that a step corresponds to a clear action. Actions can include responding to a user, triggering a function call, or retrieving additional relevant knowledge. So I'll let you guys go into that, but I've got a better example that I'm going to demonstrate to you guys so that you understand how to utilize this API. Please subscribe to my video if you haven't done so. Like and leave a comment so that I know what your experience was like with the API, what your thoughts are, and where you see this going. I'd really appreciate it if you also join my Discord community, which is absolutely free. But anyone who wants to be on the cutting edge of AI and share information in this one emporium, well, that's what my Discord community is for. You can find that on my page. There you'll have the link. As I mentioned, it's absolutely free. Just come there to learn, be respectful, and share any cool projects you're working on. You might get some customers. Talk to you soon. Dr. Full Stack Desk. Here's your news for AI.